This is the extraordinary story of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a woman who materialized objects from thin air in Victorian drawing rooms, predicted scientific discoveries decades before they occurred, and claimed to have studied with secret masters in forbidden Tibet. They called her a fraud, denounced her as an impostor, and tried to discredit the phenomena that manifested in her presence. Yet the teachings she transmitted would inspire Gandhi's revolution, influence Nobel laureates, and anticipate quantum physics by half a century. Whether prophet or provocateur, she would forever transform humanity's understanding of consciousness, challenging both religious orthodoxy and scientific dogma, with revelations that continue to perplex researchers and captivate seekers more than a century after her death. For those unfamiliar with her name, you will now discover why this remarkable woman's teachings continue to influence everything from quantum physics to popular spirituality more than a century after her death. And for those who've encountered her work, prepare to glimpse dimensions of her extraordinary life that few have fully appreciated. Whether you see her as messenger or mystic, prophet or provocateur, one thing remains certain: the woman known simply as HPB to her followers defied societal constraints as a female spiritual leader in the Victorian era and introduced concepts that would forever transform humanity's understanding of consciousness itself. In the late 1860s, while European explorers with military training and government backing repeatedly failed to penetrate the isolated kingdom of Tibet, a solitary Russian woman claimed to have accomplished the impossible. According to Blavatsky's account, she not only entered Tibet, a feat that typically resulted in expulsion or imprisonment for foreigners, but spent extended time studying directly with enlightened masters in secret monasteries closed to the outside world. Such a bold claim became the foundation of her spiritual authority and the wellspring of the ancient wisdom she would later share. It also represents perhaps the most contested chapter of her remarkable life. The historical context fuels the controversy surrounding this journey. Tibet maintained absolute isolation during this period, with ferociously guarded borders across some of Earth's most inhospitable terrain. The few Western explorers who attempted entry during this era documented the extreme dangers: treacherous mountain passes where bitter winds could freeze a traveler within hours, hostile local authorities who imprisoned trespassers, and the severe consequences awaiting those discovered. It would not be until decades later, in the 1920s, that explorer Alexandra David Nail would become the first Western woman to document a confirmed journey to Lhasa, offering a later parallel to Blavatsky's claimed expedition. Yet somehow Blavatsky, traveling alone as a woman in an era when such independence was nearly unthinkable, claimed to have succeeded where military expeditions had failed. More remarkably still, she described receiving direct initiation into esoteric traditions, preserved for millennia by an ancient brotherhood of adepts. For skeptics, this journey suggests the foundation of an elaborate spiritual deception. For believers, it marks the moment when ancient Eastern wisdom began its transmission to the Western world through a messenger uniquely qualified to bridge these disparate realms. The enduring mystery deepens through the inexplicable knowledge Blavatsky subsequently demonstrated. She introduced the West to Tibetan metaphysical concepts, specialized terminology, and esoteric practices that scholars would only verify decades later, when Tibet finally opened to outside researchers. The accuracy of her detailed descriptions of specific Tibetan practices and philosophical concepts, impossible to research in Western libraries of her time, continues to perplex academic specialists to this day. Her Tibetan sojourn appears as either the most audacious fabrication in spiritual history, or evidence of exceptional determination and divine protection that allowed one unusual woman to access wisdom deliberately hidden from the outside world. But this mysterious journey was only the beginning. Within years, Blavatsky would manifest abilities that defied the known laws of physics, leaving even hardened skeptics searching for explanations. "The room was illuminated with a strange bluish light," wrote one witness. "Before our astonished eyes, a piece of paper materialized, covered with Tibetan characters." This account, one of hundreds documented by credible observers, describes the extraordinary events that made Blavatsky's presence unlike any other. Distinguished witnesses, including skeptical journalists, renowned scientists, and government officials, consistently reported occurrences that defied conventional explanation throughout her life. In New York drawing rooms, attendees watched in astonishment as she demonstrated abilities that transcended known physical laws. Objects moved without contact, sliding across polished tables with precision. Precise information about distant locations she had never physically visited emerged with perfect accuracy. Perhaps most famously, the distinctive sounds of ethereal bells would ring in her presence without any visible instrument or mechanism, delicate crystalline tones that seemed to originate from the air itself. These demonstrations reached their apex in India, where Blavatsky established the Theosophical Society's headquarters. Here, the manifestations intensified dramatically. Multiple reliable observers documented the mysterious appearance of letters, the famous Mahatma letters, containing profound wisdom and specific instructions. These communications materialized inside sealed containers or descended from above during gatherings, often answering questions that had not been verbalized. Far from mere curiosities, these letters contained sophisticated teachings on karma, reincarnation, metaphysical evolution, and cosmic principles. Wisdom that many recipients described as life-changing in its depth and practical application. What purpose could such extraordinary displays serve? Were these demonstrations merely spectacle, or did they represent something far more profound about the nature of awareness itself? In 1884, the controversy surrounding these events erupted into international scandal when the Society for Psychical Research dispatched investigator Richard Hodgson to examine these occurrences. His subsequent report denounced Blavatsky as one of the most accomplished impostors in history, claiming to have uncovered evidence of fraud. According to Hodgson's account, sliding panels, confederates, and pre-prepared materials explained the seemingly miraculous occurrences. Yet this seemingly definitive debunking itself became controversial when subsequent analysis revealed significant flaws. Many of the methods Hodgson claimed Blavatsky employed were physically impossible given the architectural layouts where events occurred. Adding to the puzzle, distinguished witnesses continued to report identical manifestations in entirely different settings long after the supposed mechanisms had been exposed. Most significantly, in 1986, Dr. Vernon Harrison, a research scientist and former president of the Royal Photographic Society, conducted a detailed re-examination of Hodgson's evidence, concluding that it was flawed and untrustworthy, and that Hodgson had violated basic principles of evaluation and testimony. The significance of these events extends beyond their unusual nature to their underlying purpose. Unlike spiritualist mediums who use similar demonstrations primarily for entertainment or proof of afterlife, Blavatsky maintained these manifestations served a specific function: tangible evidence that awareness operates beyond physical limitations, providing practical demonstration of the principles her teachings described. These notable occurrences remain among the most thoroughly documented yet unexplained events of the modern era. They suggest either history's most elaborate and sustained series of deceptions or compelling evidence that human perception possesses capabilities that conventional science still struggles to explain, a controversy that continues to divide opinion among researchers to this day. But if the manifestations in Blavatsky's presence confounded scientists of her day, the predictions hidden within her writings would prove even more bewildering to future generations. For buried in her massive volumes lay descriptions of scientific principles that wouldn't be discovered for decades to come. In 1888, Blavatsky published her magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, a massive 2-volume work purporting to reveal the hidden science behind cosmic evolution and human development. This profound text would become the source of her most compelling legacy and her most controversial claims. The truly fascinating aspect of this work isn't merely its sprawling cosmology connecting ancient symbolism across disparate cultures. It's the work's uncanny anticipation of scientific discoveries decades before conventional research would confirm them. The atom is divisible and must consist of particles or subatoms. This statement, published in Volume 1, page 513 of The Secret Doctrine, predates J. Thomson's discovery of the electron in 1897 by nearly a decade. But this represents merely one example among many. Throughout the text, Blavatsky described the expansion and contraction of the universe in great cycles, anticipating oscillating universe theories proposed by physicists Friedmann and Lemaitre in the 1920s to 30s. The existence of energy fields and wavelengths beyond the visible spectrum, years before the confirmation of many electromagnetic wavelengths. The enormous age of Earth and geological formation, processes that conventional science wouldn't accept until well into the 20th century. The essential unity of energy and matter, decades before Einstein's famous equation. Could a 19th century woman with no scientific training have somehow glimpsed truths that the greatest scientific minds of her era had yet to discover? Or might we consider something even more remarkable? The possibility that ancient wisdom traditions preserved understanding of natural laws that modern science is only now rediscovering. Particularly perplexing about these scientific prophecies is Blavatsky's complete lack of formal scientific education during an era when women were largely excluded from scientific discourse. She claimed these concepts came not from her own intelligence, but from ancient manuscripts, preserved by an advanced brotherhood of masters who understood cosmic principles through direct perception rather than material instrumentation. This astounding convergence between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge scientific discovery continues to this day. Concepts she introduced about awareness, the observer effect, and the fundamental nature of reality find increasing parallels in modern physics. The pantheon of distinguished minds who acknowledge drawing inspiration from her works includes not just mystics, but pioneering scientists. Nikola Tesla, whose fascination with Vedic concepts of prana and akasha directly paralleled Blavatsky's teachings on universal energy, kept a copy of The Secret Doctrine in his laboratory. Thomas Edison, who maintained a lifelong interest in theosophical concepts, explored many of the same principles of matter and energy that Blavatsky had described. The Secret Doctrine stands as a stunning example of metaphysical wisdom, anticipating scientific discovery, or alternatively, the most intricate intellectual fabrication in modern history. Undeniable, however, is its continuing influence on both seekers and scientific innovators more than a century after its publication. While her scientific foresight continues to perplex scholars, Blavatsky's revolutionary social vision would shake the very foundations of the colonial world order. Her teachings on universal brotherhood weren't merely philosophical abstractions. They became rallying cries for independence movements across continents. In the heart of the Victorian era, when European colonialism reached its zenith and racial theories justified global domination, Blavatsky introduced a revolutionary concept that directly challenged the prevailing world order. The first objective of her Theosophical Society, founded in 1875, proclaimed universal brotherhood without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color, a radical declaration that shocked contemporary sensibilities. Far from mere philosophical idealism, this principle manifested as practical action. In India, where rigid caste divisions and colonial hierarchies strictly segregated society, Blavatsky established educational institutions open to all backgrounds. At a time when colonial authorities systematically devalued indigenous knowledge, she boldly proclaimed India's ancient wisdom as humanity's most precious philosophical heritage. The transformative impact of this perspective manifested most dramatically in India's independence movement. Her emphasis on the value of indigenous traditions created a foundation upon which later leaders would build. Mahatma Gandhi, who first encountered theosophical ideas through Annie Besant during his time in London, later acknowledged how profoundly these concepts influenced his approach to non-violent resistance and political philosophy. Jawaharlal Nehru similarly credited the Theosophical movement with helping rekindle pride in India's philosophical heritage. Annie Besant herself, as Blavatsky's successor, later became president of the Indian National Congress in 1917 and a central figure in the independence movement. Throughout the British colonies, theosophical centres became intellectual hubs where revolutionary ideas naturally flourished. In Ireland, prominent theosophists, including poet W.B. Yeats and visionary George Russell, became central figures in the cultural renaissance that preceded independence. In numerous countries, Blavatsky's teachings provided the philosophical foundation for movements celebrating indigenous wisdom and cultural self-determination. The far-reaching influence of these ideas reveals a natural consequence of Blavatsky's core teaching. When people recognize their inherent divine nature and the essential unity of humanity, artificial systems of domination naturally dissolve. Her emphasis on universal brotherhood and the value of diverse traditions provided a foundation for recognizing human dignity that transcended colonial boundaries. This facet of Blavatsky's legacy demonstrates how authentic wisdom naturally manifests as practical liberation. By reintroducing ancient understanding of humanity's shared divine nature, she catalyzed movements for both awakening and cultural renewal, whose impacts continue to shape our world today. Yet for all the grandeur of her visionary ideas and their world-changing impact, what makes Blavatsky truly unforgettable was the extraordinary individual behind these teachings, a complex, colorful personality whose unconventional life challenged every Victorian notion of how a teacher should behave. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Blavatsky's legacy is the woman herself, a study in magnificent paradox that defies every stereotype of mystical leadership. Unlike sanitized figures whose humanity has been erased by reverent mythology, Blavatsky stands as gloriously authentic, a complex, brilliant individual who made no attempt to present perfection. This messenger of esoteric wisdom smoked continuously while writing masterpieces, the blue-gray haze of tobacco smoke swirling around her as she penned cosmic insights. She was simultaneously an accomplished concert pianist, a world traveler who ventured where few dared, a gifted writer whose prose still captivates, and an individual whose personal habits scandalized proper society. She could articulate the most sublime cosmic principles one moment and use colorful language to dismiss pretension the next, her Russian accent growing more pronounced when agitated. Those who knew her personally described a woman of immense compassion and surprising humor. She would give away her last possession to relieve suffering, yet firmly challenge seekers approaching the teachings with egoistic motives. She lived in voluntary simplicity, refusing payment for metaphysical instruction while dedicating her life entirely to humanity's awakening. Her personal story gains additional power through her absolute dedication to purpose, despite continuous health challenges and relentless opposition. Throughout her life, she faced savage attacks from religious authorities threatened by her teachings, scientific materialists offended by her challenge to their paradigm, and colonial officials disturbed by her influence on indigenous populations. Yet she continued her work with unwavering determination, producing thousands of pages of revolutionary writing while maintaining extensive correspondence and providing personal guidance to countless seekers. Even in death, Blavatsky demonstrated her exceptional nature. Countess Constance Wachtmeister, who attended Blavatsky in her final days, documented the sound of astral bells ringing throughout the house as Blavatsky departed her physical form. Swedish physician Dr. Gustav Zander and several other witnesses independently corroborated these accounts, describing events similar to those reported in Tibetan traditions when advanced practitioners consciously transition between states of existence. The integration of wisdom with authentic humanity makes Blavatsky not merely a teacher, but a revolutionary example of integrated development. Unlike those who present the path as escape from human complexity, she embodied the messy, beautiful process of awareness, evolving through genuine human experience, a model of development that embraces rather than denies our humanity. This remarkable synthesis of the transcendent and the practical, the cosmic and the personal, established a template for engagement that continues to influence seekers worldwide. Her impact extends far beyond the specific teachings she transmitted to encompass an entirely new way of approaching wisdom itself, one that honors both ancient understanding and evolving knowledge. Walk into any contemporary bookstore, attend any yoga class, or listen to discussions of modern physics, and you encounter the echoes of Helena Blavatsky. The revolutionary seeds she planted have blossomed into foundational elements of contemporary understanding. Her introduction of Eastern philosophical concepts to Western audiences created bridges between wisdom traditions that continue to enrich global discourse. Concepts like karma, reincarnation, and meditation, once exotic to Western minds, have become integrated into mainstream understanding largely through the pathways she established. Her emphasis on direct experience beyond religious dogma anticipated the spiritual but not religious movement by a full century, helping millions discover authentic connection outside conventional structures. Her insistence that true development requires personal verification rather than blind belief continues to liberate seekers from dogmatic limitations. Her recognition of Earth as a living, conscious system described principles of ecological interdependence decades before the Gaia hypothesis, helping birth the environmental awareness essential for planetary survival. Her writings on the sentience inherent in all life forms predicted the shift from mechanistic to holistic understanding of nature. Her advocacy for examining the scientific foundations of metaphysical events helped establish serious research into awareness, now conducted at prestigious universities worldwide. This legacy manifests in concrete ways through modern science and culture. Physicist David Bohm's theory of the implicate order, positing an underlying unified field from which all matter and energy emerge, mirrors Blavatsky's concept of the divine ground of being. Even Carl Jung's archetypal psychology builds upon theosophical concepts of universal symbolic patterns embedded in the psyche. Could a 19th century mystic truly have foreseen quantum entanglement and non-locality? The parallels between her descriptions of universal interconnection and modern physics are striking. Nobel laureate Wolfgang Pauli studied Blavatsky's writings extensively, finding resonance between emerging theoretical concepts and her earlier descriptions of fundamental reality. Her comprehensive synthesis of world traditions established the groundwork for genuine interfaith dialogue and recognition of our shared heritage. The understanding that diverse traditions represent culturally specific expressions of universal principles has transformed religious discourse worldwide. This evolutionary legacy continues to expand rather than diminish with time. As humanity faces unprecedented global challenges, Blavatsky's integrated understanding of awareness, emphasis on universal brotherhood, and recognition of humanity's potential provide essential wisdom for navigating planetary transition. The scientific revolution, holographic universe theories, systems thinking, and research into the nature of mind all reflect principles she articulated long before their scientific verification. The growing recognition of indigenous wisdom traditions vindicates her lifelong insistence on their value. The emerging synthesis of science and mysticism fulfills her vision of unified knowledge transcending artificial divisions. This enduring influence confirms the assessment of her most insightful contemporaries. Helena Blavatsky was not merely a notable woman of her time, but a transformative messenger whose contributions to human understanding continue to illuminate our path as we awaken to our full potential. Whether you've encountered her name before or are discovering her for the first time, Helena Blavatsky's exceptional journey offers a profound invitation to recognize the limitations of conventional thinking, to explore the magnificent potential of human awareness, and to participate in the great awakening she helped initiate. As you reflect on her remarkable life, from forbidden Tibetan monasteries to Victorian drawing rooms, where reality itself seemed malleable in her presence, consider this essential question. In a world increasingly dominated by materialism and separation, what transformative wisdom might we access by exploring the same ancient traditions that changed Blavatsky from an unconventional Russian aristocrat into one of history's most influential pioneers? If Blavatsky's story has resonated with you, consider subscribing to our channel and journey deeper into the mysteries she unveiled and discover how her revolutionary insights continue to shape our understanding of human potential. May the light of wisdom guide your path, and may the unity of all life inspire you to greater compassion and understanding.